Hey everybody, it's Valence. How are you guys doing? We are back on Mass Effect 3 checking out the Earth DLC, and we're actually going to check out Kai, aka the new N7, Vanguard. Basically made after Kai Lang from the main campaign. I hated beating that guy on Insanity, I swear. But it's a really cool character, really unique, something I definitely didn't think they would put in the game. But it's extremely difficult to play, especially since the biotic charge is a little glitched and the timer's off by a couple seconds. But I do have a decent build for him so far. I don't normally play a Vanguard, so he's only level 16. And some of his abilities are, they're kind of cool, kind of not. I don't know. We'll kind of walk through them, and I'll give you my opinion on him. Plus, we'll be playing through another bronze game to give you guys gameplay. Now, he has some basic standard abilities, right? You have the biotic charge, which is the exact same thing of every other biotic charge. Nothing's different. I'll talk about the build after I go through. You have the phase disruptor, which is the phantom hand cannon. It hits very hard if you upgrade it. However, the only thing that sucks is it drains 50% of your max barrier. So if you're going to go a melee intensive build with this guy, your barrier is going to constantly be draining. So I don't use Phase Disruptor too much. I have 1 point in there, but it's a decent power. You'll see here that this is just impact radius upgrade, damage upgrade. Then you can choose damage or impact radius. You can do the reduced amount of barriers drained, so you can do 4 blasts without draining your barriers entirely. Although in the end, I still don't think it's worth it, especially with a melee build, which is what I am in this character. You also have knockdown, weaker enemies to the ground, so the infantry guys, armor, and shield barrier damage. So it's nice, but again, it drains that barrier, and that barrier is hard to keep up. So that's why I went against having Phase Disruptor. Now, with Biotic Slash is amazing. This is a slash ability. If you guys watch my Mass Effect multiplayer montage, you know that it was in there. This actually is a small, really cool animation maneuver that shoots a biotic wave from your sword in front of you. Now, it's extremely powerful. You can do it as much as you want, and it's quite amazing, especially fully upgraded. So, first point is recharge speed. Second is damage. Then you can go with damage or radius. Now, it does hit in a cone, so radius just extends that cone by 30%. You also have recharge speed, force in damage of biotic debts. This is great for debts, especially since it goes through walls. So you can shoot some slashes through a couple walls in close quarters and have another biotic detonate all of them. It is extremely overpowered if you team coordinate it. Then you have a damage buff and a range buff to give it that longer reach. But pretty straightforward. I love the power, but not that efficient with the build, although I do max it out. Here you have the N7 Slayer, and again, this is pretty straightforward. You have power and force damage, weapon damage, power damage, weight cap, headshot versus power damage, and again, all weapon weight, which is great, versus weapon damage. So it's all there. Here, fitness. Now, this is a melee intensive build, so I did go all melee. Boost shields and health, and then you also have melee. Now, with this build, I did want to do a melee build. It's hard to talk about, but I'll show you. The melee damage on this guy is ridiculous, especially since he has a katana. Although the N7 Shadow, if you have it, I wish I had her, is a much better melee build to master because you do have that cloak and that extra melee damage with the cloak. Now, I've done the best I can with this guy, and I can manage in bronze and silver, but as soon as you get up to gold, you're taking too much damage. You cannot keep up your biotic barrier because you're draining it with all of your movement, which we'll talk about when we get in the game, and it's just really difficult to play. Now, if anyone has a build for the Slayer that does fix that, please let me know because I'm really curious. I want to do a melee build with this guy. It's just extremely difficult because everything drains his barrier. So, I do have the melee damage, I have the heavy melee, and I have the melee damage bonus there. Now, the only other thing you can swap this for is you aren't going to be doing a lot of regular melee, you're going to be doing a lot of heavy melee, because it's the teleporting melee that is the heavy. So you could go with decreased shield recharge delay, but it's not that helpful because your shields are going to be constantly going through biotic charge. Now, with biotic charge, I went through so many different tries here. Biotic charge is your lifeline, especially if you're doing a melee build. So, you know, you get the recharge, you get the force. Now here, I went ahead and I buffed the 2 additional targets. This will stutter targets, stagger targets, and allow you to get those extra melees off. Now this is pretty nice, pretty straightforward, and I do enjoy it. Now here you have weapon damage, which you're not going to be using guns too much, versus power damage. So use that power damage. If you throw a biotic charge out and hit 3 people, then throw a biotic wave, you can destroy people with biotic detonations. Again, additional 50% barrier, you need it. It's a necessity. You need that to restore those barriers as you're going through. You could also go with not triggering a cooldown. I haven't tried it, but I still prefer having that extra 50% barrier because you do not have any defensive abilities as this guy, so you want to stack as much as you can. Even with all these, you see he only has 625 health and 625 barrier, and because that barrier is draining consistently, it's extremely weak, especially on the higher difficulties. But I'm hoping that they fix a few things. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. And we'll kind of see where they go with it. So he's very nice. Now, one thing I will recommend if you're doing a melee build is get a weapon with a melee attachment. Now, I use the phalanx so that I have 200% regen speed because of biotic charge. You can also do a shotgun, but make sure you equip a pistol melee stunner, which increases melee damage by X amount. I have 25%. Or a shotgun melee blade, which increases melee damage, again, by X amount, but I have the pistol. So now we're actually going to go ahead, we're going to hop into a bronze game, and I'll show off some of the skills. This character is very agile, very maneuverable, can teleport through walls. The heavy melee is amazing. I really love the heavy melee animations. It's so cool to have that katana, although I wish I could permanently hold a katana in my hand instead of having a gun. But BioWare can't give us everything, right? They do their best. Apparently I just lost my connection to the game. So, the servers have been kind of scratchy lately, just to give you the heads up on that. I don't know what's been going on with them. BioWare recently hasn't released any press announcements or anything, just server updates. It's EA, so, you know, we get what we give, and we give a lot, so we better get more, but EA never gives back. Cough, cough. Not starting a little war here, but just saying. I'm not a big EA fan. They should have stayed in sports, you know, because they can handle sports. But they can't handle stuff like this, or Medal of Honor, or Battlefield. Why don't you just let the developers do their job? Okay. Calm down, Abby. It's okay. As I mentioned, this character is extremely weak compared to the Phantom base class, the N7 Shadow, because your barriers are so weak and all of your abilities drain them. Whenever you do a melee dodge, your barriers drain. Whenever you do a phase disrupt, your barriers drain. Whenever you take damage, your barriers drain. And they're not strong because you have to go into those melee perks to get that extra melee damage, so it's pretty bad to figure it out. There's really no way to kind of work around it, but we'll go ahead and work through here. We came in on wave 5. I got 3 ways to survive. So here's the heavy melee. They decapitate targets. You want to make sure you can get that biotic charge off too. You have a certain range on your heavy melee, which can be pretty rough. Now, one thing that I noticed with this class is the melee is not as responsive as the other classes. You saw the teleport there. So you do have that agile teleport, but it does drain barriers like crazy. So you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on your barriers. That is why I felt Biotic Charge was absolutely necessary for this type of build with this character, because you need to have that barrier up constantly in order to protect yourself from damage. Now, since you only have 625 health, which is extremely low, again, you want to make sure that you have a decent idea of how everything works. So it's pretty rough, and it looks like we're getting a little bit of lag here too, but you know, it's expected. So you do see the katana on the back. This is actually one of the new objectives as well. Here's the Biotic Lash. Now the Biotic Lash is extremely deadly, and you see I just got taken down there. I'm just going to go ahead and meta-Joe. There's these situations though where you're just screwed. Guardians are extremely hard to beat without armor-piercing ammo. You can use your gun, but again, you're going to want to make sure that you have that gun with armor-piercing ammo. I have the melee stunner and then armor-piercing ammo on it in order to counter those Guardians, just because that is simply the only way to counter them. Now, the Biotic Wave is extremely dangerous. It goes through targets, which is great. You just saw me kill 2 people there with the Biotic Slash. So it's very powerful. It's very unique. This character is definitely unique. But the builds are difficult. They're extremely difficult. As long as you can see a target, though, you can melee him. So it does come in handy. The teleport has about a 15-meter range, which can be rough. It's difficult to sometimes hit characters, just make sure you're going to get that melee off. It's extremely risky whenever you do a melee attack because you will have 2 or 3 seconds where you're going to be taking damage no matter what you do. So you definitely want to make sure that you are able to subside for that. You saw that escort mission, pretty straightforward. But see, I missed that melee attack, therefore I am vulnerable. Now the melee attack will always head cut so long as you have, right, because you're teleporting around going through the walls here. It is a great class. It's not a bad class. It's extremely fun to play. However, I still feel that it's not the most powerful class. Again, especially in those higher difficulties. And more importantly, especially with the melee build. Now, if you go biotic combo and try to det everything, I think that would be an extremely interesting build because you can biotic lash the crap out of things. Once its recharge speed is up, there's literally no cooldown on it between the animation, and it can just keep going like crazy. And if you get that combo perk, the biotic combo perk, you'll be blowing people up with biotic dets. So it's interesting, but it isn't what you want it to be. Now you see here, I'm not doing as well as I thought. Sometimes you will have that problem with biotic charge where you will not be able to get your charge off. Again, causes problems. You see the melee can get glitchy, and that's a problem as well, especially there. You see it's tough to get used to. If you make a mistake, you die, and this is on bronze. Keep that in mind. Just because of those low barriers, it's a pretty bad thing to deal with. I enjoy this character. I have fun with him when I'm on bronze or with some friends just kind of screwing around, but he is not the best character in the pack, in my opinion. Now, again, if you have a build that I am totally missing out on and I totally don't understand, please feel free to let me know. I want to know if there's a build out here for this guy, because this is by far my favorite character I've unlocked so far. He's just not as valuable as I thought he would be, if that makes any sense at all. Now you see the biotic wave does go through, right? And this is without it being fully upgraded, so it is extremely powerful. It's a great attack. I mean, the fact that it goes through walls and stuff is great. Now, the one thing I do like about this melee class is he hits hard. I've one-shot phantoms before, like I'm about to do here. Gone. Which is just pure awesome. Being able to one-shot phantoms with their own katana just makes my day, quite frankly. Those phantoms have always bothered the hell out of me, and the fact that I can now chop their heads off and there's nothing they can do about it makes me happier every time I do it. So, you know, you kind of get a feel for the character. You get a feel for how awesome he is. He's a great character. He is Kai Lang, right? I mean, that's how he is. But because the barrier drains, it's just rough. Now, the Palm Strike does drain 50% of your barrier. That's the Palm Strike. It's extremely powerful. However, it does drain that 50%. Now, there may be ways to counter it. I'm not sure. But in the end, I still prefer not to use it. The optimal build for this guy, so far as I've discovered, is maxing out Biotic Slash, as well as making sure to max out your charge, right? And then you can also max out a few other things as well, but it doesn't make too noticeable a difference. Now, if you pull it off right, like I just did there, it is not hard. You can decapitate people left and right, go through them without a problem. But if you miss, it's over, and that's just how this character works. He's a melee build. It's how it's going to work. Now, are all melee builds like this? Absolutely not. The Krogan melee build just got better, if I'm not mistaken. They buffed the heck out of the Krogan melee build, which is just so legit. That Vanguard the guy's using right there is probably one of the most powerful melee builds you can still do as a Krogan. You know, and as a Krogan, makes sense. But this guy should, in all honesty, have a little bit higher barriers and a little bit more. I just don't know. I'm trying to think of what would subsidize it. I guess if if his teleports did not drain his barriers too much, and his Palm Strike didn't drain his barriers by 25%, that's even upgraded. You know, it still drains by 25%. Then maybe I would be using it a little more frequently with some higher barriers, maybe like 800 or something like that. That would kind of make sense. But you see here, it's just, you got to make sure you biotic charge. If you don't charge, you get screwed. And there's nothing you can do about that. So you have to constantly charge to make sure that no one's going to kill you. Otherwise, you'll get a new one torn every time. And that's just not fun. The big thing, too, is you can't miss. You miss, you take damage. That sucks, but that's exactly how it works, unfortunately. Saw that turret there, take damage. Got to make sure you keep your biotic wall up, otherwise it's over, right? And while it's extremely unfortunate, and I don't enjoy that, that is how it has to work. Now you do have a decent range on the head cuts. Unfortunately, it's not as much as I would want it to be, you know. But you got to make sure that you're doing okay with those biotic charges, because the second you mess up on one, it's done. And you'll see this is on bronze. Keep that in mind. And if you can't get off a charge when you need to, you're dead. It's that simple. So this class is cool. It's very unique, and it's something that I'm happy I get to play as now. However, it's not what it could be. That's just my personal standpoint on it. It's not what it could be. And that's unfortunate, because I think this had the potential to be a really, really cool class. But just the fact that, you know, you gotta stay at such a distance and you can't make a melee class out of it is extremely, extremely disappointing. So that's a little bit of insight into the Vanguard. Again, pretty straightforward, pretty laid back. That is exactly how it works. Again, I'm curious. I want to know if there's a better build for this guy. I want to know if you can make him as awesome as Kai Lang was in the campaign. I know Kai did have shields. He did not have barriers, so far as I understand. But, you know, that's just kind of how it works, I guess. Now, I do want to get my hands on the N7 Shadow, which is the Phantom equivalent, because she does have Cloak, she does have Shadow Strike, and still has the melee bonuses, which is fantastic. So I kind of want to see how she plays. I definitely want to see how she plays. Looks like we're glitching out a bit here. Some good fun with the new server problems. Oh boy. Now the melee for this guy is extremely glitchy. I don't know if I'm hovering above the ground, what, why, how I'm hovering above the ground, but see, extremely glitchy. It's bad. You really have glitching problems with this. This isn't the only map that this happens on. It happens everywhere. Some of the new maps even, you'll get teleported through the floor, and there's really nothing you can do about it. You can try to biotic charge, although it's not going to do it justice. I want to see if I can get out of here. But the Vanguard is just extremely glitchy. Now, is the Shadow? No. And I find that surprising, because the Shadow does have some abilities that also teleport her around extremely. And she is not this glitchy at all. So it's with this biotic kind of click around that, you know, we kind of try to figure out what's going on here. And I can still kill stuff. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I can still throw out some waves here. And you see that biotic slash in action again. But again, I can't get out of this. So I'm lucky the extraction's here on this map. I've been stuck in maps and there was absolutely nothing I could do. And there's no way to get back up. So it's rough. And like I said, this isn't the only map that does this. I've experienced this on multiple maps. I've been stuck in walls. I've had problems where my teleports will put me in some location I don't even know. On Vancouver, I glitched out of the helipad and was floating in the air, and there was nothing I could do. I could just biotic slash over and over and over again, and I ended up not making it to extraction. So there's plenty of bad stuff. to debate about. The Slayer's cool, but it's not the best thing in the world, and it's something that I think BioWare should fix by buffing up its barriers. Anyway, though, guys, that's the N7 Slayer. If you guys enjoyed this commentary, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel and check out my videos. I also have videos for the Destroyer, and then coming up, I'm also going to be doing the Demolisher, which is the Engineer. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope this gave you a little insight into N7 Slayer, and I'm excited to see what kind of builds you guys post. I really want a better build for this guy and some of your feelings. Take it easy, everyone, and I'll be talking to you in the future. Have a good one. Avi out.